A trad wife is a term that is a shortened version of traditional wife. It generally refers to a married woman who embraces traditional gender roles within their marriage. The main focus of trad wife often prioritize managing the household, which includes tasks like cooking, cleaning, laundry, and children. You could say many people on social media, like Nara Smith, showcase the lifestyle of trad wife. Nara Smith has over 11 million followers, and each video she posts, she gets millions of views, glorifying the unrealistic lifestyle of a trad wife. Now let's take a look at her videos.
My sister's in town to visit, and she's been craving bubblegum so bad, but she ran out, so I just decided to make it for her. I poured some powdered sugar on some wax paper and created a well before combining my gum base with some corn syrup and slowly melting it down. Once that was all melted, I gave it a good stir and poured it into my little powdered sugar wells I created. One of her favorite flavors is green apple, so I made a green apple one and then also experimented with making a cinnamon vanilla gum. Once the mixture was cold enough to handle, I kneaded it and then stretched it out and made sure to always have it covered in the powdered sugar so it wouldn't stick. Then I rolled out my gum, cut it into equal pieces, and decided to go for a little gum ball. Once all the green apple ones were formed, I moved on to my cinnamon vanilla ones and set them aside before tossing them in some more powdered sugar. To keep them fresh, I placed them in some wax paper, twisted the sides, and repeated that process with all of them. And then they were ready to try. These tasted even better than store-bought gum, and she was so excited. The cinnamon vanilla ones tasted like a donut. I was very pleased about.
You see, this is the type of stuff I have hard time believing because you're trying to tell me that she has all of these ingredients just lying around that to the point where she just gets up and says, "Hey, I'm gonna make a gum from scratch, and I have all of the ingredients." Yeah, okay. I have a hard time believing that, but let's continue.
I had a very emotional morning and I was craving a little pick-me-up drink. And since I've been thinking about making horchata for the last few days, I decided to just make it today. I soaked my rice in some water with cinnamon for about 4 to 5 hours while I got started on making some condensed milk. I combined milk and sugar, put that on the stove, and then made some evaporated milk by just boiling off some milk. After about 45 minutes, my condensed milk was done, so I strained it and put that in the fridge to thicken. I moved on to straining all the skin off my evaporated milk before letting that cool as well. While those were cooling in the fridge, I poured my rice, water, and a little bit of the cinnamon into my blender. I blended that for about 5 minutes before straining that as well, and making sure I get all the liquid out before adding that to a big jug. Adding my condensed milk, my evaporated milk, and about another 2 cups of water to thin it out. I gave that a really good stir, and I was finally done. I filled up my glass with some ice, added my horchata, a dash of cinnamon, and this was so divine and hit the spot.
Again, this is very unrealistic. This is not what it's like to stay at home or be a treadwife. There's so much to it than just this. This is a propaganda that is being fed to you. Because do you really think that this is how you're going to be in a million mansion looking house? Like, this is a propaganda. This is work for the patriarchy. And they are spoon feeding young girls out there and they are eating it up. Fatties. Okay.
We were about to go to bed when I realized that we were all out of toothpaste. So my husband went downstairs to make some. Lucky is very precise in his measurements, so he started out by measuring some bentonite clay. He added that to a bowl with a tablespoon of water. We weren't making a huge batch, so this was more than enough. He mixed it until it was all smooth and broke a spoon in the process. Then he moved on to measuring out some coconut oil and adding that to our clay mixture. He also added a teaspoon of baking soda. He gave that a really good mix, made sure everything was combined before he added the last 2 ingredients, which were some stevia and peppermint essential oil. We love our toothpaste quite minty, so he added a lot of essential oil before mixing that up one last time and transferring that over to a glass container. I know everyone's teeth are different, so this might not work for everyone, but the smell of this and the texture of this, I love having it on hand. This morning, my toddlers woke up with a cough and a little bit of a sore throat, and I don't usually keep cough drops or traditional medicine in.
You don't keep cough drops, but you have everything that it is needed to make cough drops. So you, ah!
The house, so let's make some. Wanted to make lemon ginger and elderberry cough drops. I poured some honey into my pot and then moved on to peeling my ginger. Didn't want to use too much ginger because I didn't want it to be too spicy for them, so I just eyeballed it and then also added some elderberry and about half a lemon. You can definitely adjust this to whatever you want to do. After I added all my ingredients to my honey, I gave it a good stir and boiled it on the stove until it reached about 300 degrees Fahrenheit. In the meantime, I prepped my mold. Once my honey was hot enough and reached the hard crack stage, I spooned it into my mold. I had to work quickly because towards the end my honey began to thicken. Popped those in the fridge to harden quicker, and then when they were cooled off, I popped them out of their molds. I laid them on some arrowroot powder to prevent them from sticking, but you can also use cornstarch or powdered sugar. These were so soothing.
You guys also notice how she's always like, these trade wives are always so glamored up just to do like cooking and cleaning from scratch.
My toddlers, baking is something I'm really. My sister's in town too. Husband has been loving. Here's everything.
The next thing Nora Smith does is like after she gave birth, like 2 weeks postpartum, she is making food from scratch. Are you trying to tell me that a woman who literally gave birth is 1 week later she's just getting up and making food from scratch? I don't think so.
You know when a craving hits and you can't stop thinking about it? That's what happened to me. All I wanted was a focaccia sandwich, so that's what I had to make. Obviously also needed a lunch beverage. I can't do the taste of water lately, so I used liquid IV. Love how these come sugar-free, and they have improved hydration in comparison to just water alone, which postpartum I love. After making my beverage, I move on to making a quick chimichurri. I chop up some parsley, shallot, garlic, combine that with some olive oil, red wine vinegar, some oregano, salt, some lemon, give that a good mix and set that aside while I chop up some tomatoes. I wanted to keep these really simple, so I just cut them in quarters, drizzled them with some olive oil and balsamic glaze. At this point my focaccia had risen, so I dimpled it and then decided to spread some red onions on top and some of that chimichurri before popping it in the oven to bake. Moved on to making some chicken cutlets, so I seasoned my breadcrumbs and flour before whisking up some eggs to dip my chicken in. And then I did a 3-step process: the flour first, then the egg, and then the breadcrumbs before putting my chicken on a wire rack. I repeated this step with all of my chicken and then fried it up in some olive oil and butter until it was golden brown. Once that was done, I set that aside and let it cool on a wire rack and pulled my focaccia out the oven. The sandwich needed some kind of creamy sauce, so I made Calabrian chili aioli to go alongside it. And then it was time to assemble, so I cut my bread in half, spread some aioli on top, the chicken, some arugula, the tomato, chimichurri. Obviously needed to cut that in half, and there you go. This hit the spot and was so good.
Day in my life as a stay-at-home mom to a 43-month-old and 21-month-old. I got started on breakfast right away. This morning we're having an apple cinnamon Dutch baby. Some of y'all came for me last time I made this because you call it something else, which is totally fine. To you, it may be a German pancake, a puff pancake, or a Yorkshire pudding. All are delicious, but it's the same thing. Anyways, I finished breakfast and got the boys fed before I made my first coffee of the day. This machine is new, and as you may know, I have been working on my latte art. And I must say, I am getting pretty good. Like, please look at this puffy white cloud I made this morning. After breakfast, I got everybody ready for the day. It's the weekend, so we have the day off of homeschool, but Archie does have dance class this morning. The weather was so nice today, so after dance, we headed home and got changed. I packed some lunches, and we are heading to the park. We went for a little hike. The boys found some walking sticks, and then we searched for leaves that we could do some leaf rubbings with. This is such a fun activity. If you haven't done it before, you just lay down leaves with paper on top and then color over it with crayon, and it reveals the pattern of the leaves. My boys love doing this. Then we had some lunch. My lunch was whatever the boys didn't want to finish. Next, we headed home for nap. I freshened up, made myself another coffee. Please tell me if you can guess what this design is. We're having pizza for dinner tonight, so I got started on the dough for that while they slept, and that was pretty much our day, and the pizza turned out amazing.
Now that we took a look at the delusional side of the media and what the media is feeding young girls out there, because we have thousands of girls in the comments of Nara Smith's video talking about, oh, I want to be like you, I want to be like this when I grow up, you're my inspiration. But the thing is, this shouldn't be your inspiration. Like, sure, you should if you want to be like a tread wife, don't get me wrong, I'm not like hating on that or anything, but you have to have some sort of like education. You can't just be a tread wife. You can't not depend on a man. So many feminists died for you to have the right to an education, and for you to just throw that away is honestly crazy to me. And on top of that, you guys have to see that what they're doing is literally to lure you in. Of course, they're not going to show you like the bad side of what being a trade wife is. There's a reason why you don't see Nara Smith getting on her knees and scrubbing the floor, or scrubbing the toilet, because that's not a part of like advertising. They are advertising it for the young girls out there to lure them in. Now, let's take a look at actual like tread wives that really didn't end well for them, the real side of tread wife.
So I'm a former Mormon trad wife. I have 6 kids. I'm 38 years old. I don't have an education. I got married young. I had kids young, and I absolutely gave up on my hopes and dreams to choose the life that I have now. If you would have asked me 5 years ago if I felt like I had choices in my life, I would have hands down told you that I was incredibly happy with the choices that I made, and that I made those choices knowing full well what I was choosing. Now that I've been out of the church for 3 years, I will tell you that I was never actually given a choice, because I see that the choices that I were given were not given in an honest light. It's not fair to show someone 10 candy bars and say, hey, you can choose this candy bar, which is the right candy bar that you should choose, or you can choose these 9, which are poisonous and deadly, and if they don't kill you, they're going to kill all of your friends and family members. What would you like to choose? That's how choices are given in Mormonism. So when you're in it, you feel like you're making a choice that makes you happy. And to be fair, like, I was happy in the sphere of what I knew happiness was, which in Mormonism, sacrifice and suffering is required for happiness. You're taught that everyone else's happiness outside of the Mormon church isn't real happiness. The joy you feel being Mormon, even though it comes with pain and suffering and sacrificing the choices that you actually would have made had you been presented the entire truth, is better and more and real. So are Mormon women truly choosing their lives and being happy with their choices? I think it depends what you consider a choice and what you consider happiness. But I will say that for me, leaving Mormonism was the first true choice that I ever made. I didn't know life could be this amazing.
If you're wondering why you don't see a lot of trad wife content from women who are sort of 35 and above, it's because they end up like me. Hi, for those of you who don't know, I was a stay-at-home housewife from when I was 17 to nearly 27. What my life looked like for that decade was, essentially, I waited for him to come home for about 10 years. At the time I was 21, I had 2 kids under 3, and so that took up an enormous amount of my time. They were only allowed to go to a Steiner Waldorf school under his rules, which basically means no tech, no screen time. They learn how to do things with like wool and clay, and it's actually really culty. And I personally wouldn't have picked that, but what he said went. I was incredibly submissive, and I loved him absolutely unconditionally, regardless of what he did to me. And yes, this was also a very abusive relationship, but I don't think that's necessarily typical to the degree that it happened to me, to everyone in these kinds of relationships. I was very fortunate that I worked part-time some of that time, although it was really hard for me to hold down work because my work was never prioritized, and I'd only work like 7 hours a week anyway. So not enough to have financial independence, but enough to have a little bit of like pocket money, although he would often dip into that as well. The industry I worked in and like got any kind of education in, because I wasn't allowed to go to uni, was the beauty industry, because that was considered safe, because I wouldn't have male co-workers and therefore I wouldn't have male friends, and I wasn't allowed to talk to male friends anyway, even the ones I'd been friends with for like over a decade at that point. I wasn't allowed to get tattoos. He had absolute say over what I looked like. He would decide how I dressed, how I wore my hair, and if I changed things without like asking him first, he would put me down either very directly telling me I looked awful, or indirectly by saying, oh, I liked how I looked before, and he'd hassle me with it until I changed it to a way that he deemed acceptable. A really fun thing about that is I figured out years later that he actually just encouraged me to look like the women he was cheating on me with, so that's fun. I learned how to cook like a chef because his expectation was, from the time I was, again, 17 years old, was that I made everything from scratch with fresh ingredients, so I went to the supermarket every single day. But because I wasn't allowed to drive, I had to walk to the supermarket or take like buses and trains, and a lot of the time he wanted really niche food that meant I had to go on missions all over town, and that would take up my whole day with my toddlers in a pram wandering around. And so what happens is eventually these women make friends.
I made friends with other mothers because my children started school, and I realized something actively bad was happening to me. I made a plan and I left. It took me 2 years. And so that brings you to why you don't see women who are older, who are mid-30s, mid-40s and up, making tradwife content. When you leave, you have no ability to make your own money. You have no financial independence. So do you know what you have to do? You have to go study. You have to get a job. You have to figure out how to untangle all of his wants over your needs, which takes forever. Case in point, I am 34 years old. I have just started an undergrad degree and I have just learned how to drive. And those two things are absolutely incredible. The first thing I did when we broke up, when I had a bit of money to spare, I got tattooed because I was finally allowed to make decisions about my own body. My hair has been every color and length you could possibly imagine since we broke up because I get to make decisions about how I look. The thing is, the longer that you're in a relationship like this, in a way, it was kind of fortunate for me that there were more urgent factors that made me leave sooner, but I am still a good 10, 15 years behind everyone else my age in terms of setting up my finances, in terms of building a career for myself. If you've been in this relationship since you were like 18 and you are now 40, 50 or above, you have no idea how to make a career happen. And because you've got so many gaps in your resume, again, I was fortunate that I work part-time, you're not getting a job. You don't get to have any kind of life. You will be destitute forever. And I also feel like, and I can't relate to this because when we broke up, my children were still in elementary school, but I feel like if you've been in this relationship for decades, your grown-up children are probably also going to be really entitled because they've been raised on the belief that they can treat you like this because that is the norm. And so there are so many of us who have been in these kinds of relationships. I see them all over this app who are in their 30s, 40s and 50s who have left these kinds of relationships, who are like, for the love of God, don't do it. If you really want to cosplay as a 50s housewife, get an education, get your own bank account, put off getting married till you're a little bit older. So yeah, that's why.
I'm here to tell you why that whole trad wife trend is absolute bullcrap. I just got off the phone with a friend of mine who has been married for about 15 years now. Before she got married, she got a master's degree in education and a law degree. She met her husband in law school. He wanted a traditional wife. She did not take the bar, and instead they got married. He took the bar, he passed the bar, he became a lawyer, and she became a full-time housewife and later a mom, times 5. They have 5 children. Okay, fast forward 15 years, where he has been cheating on her for years. She finally caught him red-handed. She has enough confidence and determination to say, I want a divorce, I'm done. He's walking away with a $300,000+ job that he got, by the way, from one of her mom friends in a mom group. Let's just put that aside. She has nothing. She has 2 advanced degrees, 0 experience. So are they even worthwhile? Are they even worth anything? She has nothing to show for it. And in the last 15 years, what has changed in law and in education? Probably quite a bit. So she is stuck at this crossroads of feeling like she has nothing. And before you say alimony, he is trying to screw her out of everything he possibly can. She cannot keep the house, even though she has primary custody of the children. She can't afford it. She has no job. Absolutely no job right now. And even if she did, there are 5 children. So between drop-offs and pickups at 4 different schools, she has about 3 hours in the daytime when she is not tending to children. So to any woman who is considering that the trad wife lifestyle might be it for you, I encourage you to think about this story. Remember it. And just remember that you as a woman need to have something for yourself. If anything, just for yourself, because you absolutely never know what can happen in life, whether it be divorce, whether it be cheating, whether it be the passing away of your spouse. You have to take care of yourself and put yourself first. You can still love and support your husband and be an incredible wife who takes care of your man, but take care of yourself first.
Stay-at-home mom depression. Every single day is the same. I look at the same walls. I do the same thing. I wear the same clothes. I never get ready. Stay-at-home mom depression is very real and something not a lot of people know about. No one talks about the isolation. No one talks about the loss of identity or the loneliness. Nobody understands why after you've been home all day, the house is still a wreck. As a stay-at-home mom, you're on call all the time. Just so draining on my mind and so overstimulating. Half the time I feel like I'm running an insane asylum. The other half I feel like I belong in I'm one. I hardly ever want to get out of bed in the morning. I go days without showering. I've lost most motivation to keep my house clean. Always prioritize everybody before myself. Don't get me wrong, I am so blessed to be able to stay home with my kiddos. But from the moment I open my eyes to the moment I close them, somebody needs something from me. And that comes with being the default parent. No one understands why you just need 5 minutes with no speaking or touching, or why sometimes you need to go in the shower and just cry to yourself for 5 minutes. And nobody will understand that feeling you have when you're told that being a stay-at-home mom is not a real job.
Just tired. Ugh, I fucking hate this. I hate this some days. I just, I'm never enough, and, I feel like I'm gonna disappoint one of my kids. And every time they go to sleep, it's like I didn't spend enough time with one of them, and my daughter, who's my own.
So yeah, there's also the bad side of being a mother. It's not easy to be a mother, and for the media to glorify this type of thing is not really fair for the young girls out there, because then they'll be wondering, why did nobody tell me about this? And the next video that I'm going to show you guys is the woman who literally just lost her dream to being a treadwife. She had a dream of being a ballerina professional, but she ended up getting trapped by a man who couldn't take no for an answer, despite her rejecting him so many times. And when she finally decided to give him a chance, you know what Papi did? He trapped her. Yeah, he got married to her 3 months after, and then he got her pregnant. So now she's just existing, probably hating her life, but
this is a 34-year-old Mormon woman named Hannah Nealman. She was once at Juilliard in New York City, a trained ballerina. She now lives on a farm in Utah with her husband and 8 kids. This reporter from the British paper, the Sunday Times, went to the farm, interviewed Hannah, published an article, Meet the Queen of the Trad Wives. So the internet blew up like this was like the Handmaid's Tale. But if this is what she wants to do, then, this is America. You get to do that. What is your problem with it?
Seeing as how she did go to Juilliard, it's really impressive that her parents said, yeah, go live your dreams. Now, what the internet is upset about is her now husband coming in and saying, actually, instead of following your dreams, you're going to be my wife and have all these children for me. I mean, they got married 3 months after they met each other, which is also a very common Mormon thing. And so people are saying, did she actually have a choice? Was she kind of pushed into this?
here's a video of her